Hey guys, Adam here with a little something for you today. Some of you know I've been working with Mike Johnson over at FPGA Arcade, and together we've been reverse engineering some of the Namco customs for the various projects that we've been working on. Now one of the cool things he's been working on is the replay board, and the replay board is an FPGA based developer's kit for those who want to tinker around with the old 8-bit computer systems from the 80s and 90s. It even works with arcade games and the like. And so I kind of expressed an interest in that, and I went down to the mailbox this morning, and lo and behold, I have a replay board. I believe this is a replay board. It says it's from Mike, all the way from Sweden. And I don't know anybody else from Sweden, except for that one guy.
English beer, the Swedish meatball. It's beer, the sauce, the meatball.
But it's probably not him. So yeah, I'm assuming this is from Mike. So I figured we would do an unboxing and kind of a little review of the replay board. Now I believe on his website he's got a couple of builds already set up for this, for projects that he's done in the past, like Pac-Man, maybe even some old 8-bit computer systems, maybe like Apple or C64 or something. But anyway, yeah, let's crack this guy open and we'll take a look. Alright, let's tear in this bad boy. Jiffy green. Pull this guy out of here. Oh, that's cool. Replay, FPGA Arcade. Very nice and official. If I can get this open. We have a shield. Oh, this is, I believe, a shield for a mini ITX case that matches the back of the replay. So if you want to grab a case of your choosing, a mini ITX case, this will allow you to use that with the replay board. Let's pull this guy out here. That looks to be it. Let's take a look at what we got here. Okay. So this, I believe, is the Spartan, what is it, Spartan 3E? That's the Spartan 3E. Let me take a peek here. Yeah, that's Spartan 3E. And that is the FPGA. Over here looks like the RAM. This whole section here looks like power supply with your on-off switch. For power, it looks like a standard 3.5mm power jack, or this is what the standard PC power supply header. Looks like we have over here large expansion connector and a smaller expansion connector here. I believe this is a serial port output if you want to hook it up to a terminal and do debug or something. We have our SD card reader here, very nice. This is a JTAG header, if I'm not mistaken. A button, probably a general function button. You could configure it however you want. DVI connector for video. Audio jack is here. Component video, S-video. We have our PS2 connectors for mouse and keyboard. And then we have two, these are actually, I believe, for joysticks, for like the old Atari 2600 and Colecovision style of joysticks. I believe that's what these are, two joystick ports. And so yeah, what can I point out here that I can kind of eyeball? This looks like the ARM processor that they were throwing on there. So that we'll get to as I go over the hardware, but I believe that is, yeah, it's an Atmel microcontroller, ARM-based microcontroller. What else can I see here? That I think is the video DAC, Crontel, and I think this over here is probably the audio DAC. So anyway, that's kind of an overview of what this thing looks like. Let's go over the hardware in a little bit of detail and I kind of explain how all these guys talk to each other. Alright, so let's take a look at the hardware on this thing. So in the center here, you see we have the Xilinx 3E, it's a Spartan 3E 1600, which means it's got 1.6 million gates on this thing. So I believe it's the largest Spartan 3E that they make, which is awesome. Up above that we have a PLL, which drives the clocks not only to the FPGA, but to some of the other peripherals, and we'll get to that in a second here. On the left here we got two PS2 connections. One is for the mouse and one is for a keyboard. Below that we have some 9-pin D sub 9 connectors for the joysticks.
Those will handle like you know, Atari 2600 or Colecovision style joysticks. I'm assuming many others that fit that profile. We also have a high quality stereo audio DAC, which feeds out to a standard 3.5 millimeter. Is it 3.5 millimeter? Actually, I'm not sure. Whatever the standard headphone jack is, it basically feeds that. We also have a small expansion header connector type thing for JAMA. I know Mike's been working on like a JAMA harness connector that taps into that guy. We also have a video DAC, which supplies not only digital but also analog video. The digital video heads over to a DVI jack, which we saw, and then it also feeds analog for RCA and for S-video. And then up over here we have a much larger header. That was the header that was kind of located in the central part of the board, which is a Samtec 80 or 160 pin connector. And then up here we have 64 megs of DDR RAM, which is very helpful for guys like me who have just too much ROM information to store in the actual FPGA, and I'm hoping to take advantage of that, tap into that, and throw all my ROMs in there and just pull the data as I need it. Last but not least, and let me just scroll up here if I can. What's really nice, and compared to like my other dev kit that I have, actually I'm looking over my shoulder at it now, does not have this, which is really key. So what this is basically is it's an ARM microcontroller by Atmel, and this allows some pretty cool tricks. Currently in like my dev kit, I have an FPGA, I have a JTAG header, and I have a bunch of peripherals, RAM and some other stuff similar to this. But if I want to program the FPGA, I need to hook up my JTAG cable to my PC and take my my files that generated through synthesis from Xilinx and all that, and send them through the JTAG port and basically program the FPGA. If I ever want to change something or maybe try another build, I have to go through that whole process again. What's nice about this is we have an ARM microcontroller that's kind of running the show here. And so you can take your the files that are generated right out of the Xilinx synthesis and throw them right onto an SD card, and then this has a bootloader pre-installed. I believe Mike and Wolfgang both kind of worked quite a bit on that, and it's got a really nice menu interface, and so you can basically go through this SD card and look for those files and then load them up. So it's got a nice little menu to do that. What's really cool is that you can have several builds on here. For example, and I'll kind of go through this hopefully in a minute. You can have Pac-Man, you can have Galaga, you can have an Amiga build, you can have a Commodore 64 build. And when you boot this guy, the menu shows up and you can select through all your builds, figure out which one you want, and go ahead and load it into the FPGA. So it's really, really nice. It's also got RS-232, for debugging and whatnot if you want to hook that up to a terminal and take a look at some output. And it's also got up here on top a USB, mini USB port. And I believe that is probably to, I think at this point, at this stage in the game, the bootloading code has the ability to update itself based on information it can find on the SD card. But for some reason, if you brick the thing, you can always, rely on this USB to program the microcontroller that way. So now that we've kind of gone over a lot of the hardware, let's take a look at this in action. I do have a couple of builds handy that I can play around with, so let me grab a spare SD card, load this guy up, and we'll take it for a spin. Alright, so I'm going to walk through just a little bit, not in detail too much, but just kind of an overview of how to set up your replay to kind of play around for the first time. There is a repository that's set up by Mike for anybody who wants to tinker with the cores. And it's also a place for developers to kind of keep track of their stuff. I'm not going to go over how to set it all up on your machine, but you can go check out FPGA Arcade in the forums there. I believe there's a thread on how to set it all up on your box there and get you going. And so anyways, let's dive into the folder structure here. So repos, documents, hardware, and software. We're interested in the hardware, replay, and cores. And so you can see here, these are all the cores that are currently either in development or available for the replay. There's a whole bunch of stuff up here. You got Amiga, you got some arcade stuff like Asteroids and Galaga and Defender. You got some old computer systems like the C64, Amiga. There's a few other in here, the Atari 800 XL. So there's all sorts of stuff in here to kind of play around with. Again, some of these are under development, and some of them are ready for the replay. A quick way to tell is inside of these guys, if you see an SD card folder, then it's got stuff you can throw on the SD card and load up into the replay and take it for a spin. If it does not have a folder like that, then it ain't ready. So there are some of these that are just under development, and that's understandable. So just skip those for now, and if you want to play around, take a look at some of the other ones that are ready. So how this basically works is, let's say you have a fresh SD card and you're ready to get going. There is a loader core here. We're going to take a look at that. And SD card. And anything in here is what you want to throw into the root directory of your SD card. And so background raw, I believe that's the background image that gets thrown up on the screen, as you'll see in a minute. Loader.bin, that is the binary file that gets loaded into the FPGA, and then a replay.ini. Excuse me. Replay.ini, as you can see here, is what the ARM processor parses to set up things like clocks. It sets up the PLL. It can stick information into memory. It can set up the FPGA, basically telling the FPGA which or the ARM which binary file to load into the FPGA, and all sorts of other features and stuff like that. I haven't really gone through this in great detail, kind of taken a look at it, but I have kind of picked out bits and pieces here and there. But anyway, any core, including this loader, which is a core in and of itself, has an ini file, and that's the file that it uses to kind of configure the FPGA. So we take a step back and look at a game core, for example, like Galaga. He should have an SD card folder. And again, this is one that Wolfgang's been working on. And you look at his ini, he's got quite a bit of more information here. This is stuff that gets thrown onto the on-screen display to explain how to control the ship and whatnot. It's got the same setup for video and for clocks. There's some other stuff down here for buttons and whatnot. But again, there's a bit here that I don't understand. I do spot some stuff here. ROM. So I believe what this is instructing the ARM processor to do is to take certain ROMs that are located right here. You can see them on that same SD card, and load them into memory and what locations and whatnot. I think that's the gist. I may be a little wrong. I'm sure Wolfgang will correct me if I'm wrong. So anyway, let's try throwing some of these of interest on the SD card. And actually, I've started that already. Here's my SD card. And so I have, again, this is the stuff that you saw in the loader SD card folder. And then I got some other builds here. I got the Galaga build, I got Colecovision, I got a C64 and Amiga. And I'll probably throw a couple of other ones on there for good measure. And we will plug it in and try it out.
So here's my current setup. As you can see, I don't have ironically, in all the crap that I have down here in the lab, I don't have an AC 5-volt adapter for this guy. And so I have to use the standard ATX PC power supply connector, which thankfully is on the board here. But hopefully I'll get a standard 5-volt AC adapter and do away with all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I have my keyboard and mouse hooked up here, I have my audio hooked up here, I have a DVI cable here which goes over to my monitor. One thing that I noted, and that's actually noted in a lot of the readmes for the various cores, is that DVI-D is not really supported in some of these cores. It has problems syncing the DVI-D. They do sync properly to DVI-I, which I believe is the analog portion of that standard. I'm not sure. So at the other end of this cable, I have a DVI to VGA adapter, and then I use that to basically view my images. One other caveat that I noticed is that these connectors here for your joystick ports, I have a standard, Atari 2600 style controller here with a 9-pin setup. Does not want to go in here. I think the holes are rather small on the original Atari and Colecovision. Actually, I have a Colecovision controller over here that's kind of the same deal. Let me throw it over here. We can see. You can actually see some of the holes are larger than others. Hopefully, you can see that. But anyway, they do not fit well into these two ports here, and I think just the standard DB9 pins are too large. And so I'm contemplating whether taking a pair of tweezers or something and kind of just, rounding out the holes a little bit more, giving it more room, wiggle room, so I can stick it in there. I did try forcing it in there, but man, I was really pushing hard, and I did not want to break this thing. I did find that if I kind of just do what I can and then just leave it alone. It seems to work fine for the most part. So I think I'll just do that now, and then maybe if I want to play around with it later. But anyway, that's kind of my current setup. So why don't we hook... Oh, one other note too that I noticed for some of these games, if you look at the menu, it says to credit, press up; to start the game, press down. It took me a while to figure this out, but it's actually referring to the upper joystick port here. So you plug a joystick into the upper port, you press up for credit and down to start, and then you use the second port, the one below, to actually move your character around and play the game and whatnot. And so just a caveat there too. So anyway, let's enough yakking. Let's fire this guy up, and we'll go through the menu and we'll take a look at some of these cores. Alright, let's fire this guy up. I have my SD card in here. Turn that on. Right now it's probably programming with the loader. Here we go. So this is the on-screen display I was telling you about. You can see here it's got the nice little background, and the mouse actually works and everything. And so this is the loader core that comes with it. And let's bring up the on-screen display again, so you can tell it gives you a little bit of information about the INI that's loaded up, SD card and whatnot. Left and right will bring you to some different menus. You can play around with the options, turning the background image on and off, audio and video type stuff and whatnot. Here is kind of the main menu where you can load a core, load a target, reset that core target, configure it back up. I'm not sure what that does, or reboot the board. So we want to load a target, and so we'll do that. And you can see here I got Phoenix, Ladybug, Galaga, Colecovision, C64, and Amiga. And so let's start with Wolfgang's core, since that's kind of my favorite. And SD card and the INI. SD, I don't know if that's standard definition. I assume Galaga INI is high def. We'll use that. And let's see what we get here. So right now it's programming the FPGA and then booting it. There we go. And you can see here, so he's got his own little menu, and it says, the copyright, blah blah blah. And it's got up and down. Up is coin, down is start. And let me get this out of the way so you can kind of see it. And so let me quickly plug this guy in here. You can hear the audio there. Hopefully you can hear that. Let me turn it up a little bit. And so I believe I should be able to coin this guy up. And then quickly move this over to the other port like I said. To move this guy back and forth. Oh, I just lost my blue. There we go. Or not my blue, my other colors. So yeah, this seems to be working pretty well. So let's see what else we got on here. Let's see, I want to load a target. Let's go back. And let's try Phoenix. Phoenix. And let's get this out of the way. And there we have Phoenix. Let me see if I can get this to coin up. Negative. Alright, am I doing something wrong here? Maybe I'm on the wrong port? I don't know. Maybe it's still in beta, or maybe I'm just doing something wrong. Oh! Plus player one, only button. There we go. So I was in the wrong port. And I don't even know if I've ever played. I must have played this at some point in MAME or something. But it seems to be working pretty well. Alright. Let's try something else. Let's try something a little different. Let's do like Commodore 64. Commodore 64.ini. Commodore 64 Basic. Let's see if, oh boy, how long has it been since I programmed Basic? Let's see if I remember how to program Basic. Uh-oh, I forgot a space over there. And everyone's favorite program. Boom. So it works. Let's try something else. Let's try Colecovision. I love me some Colecovision. Colecovision.ini. Very cool. Turn game off before inserting cartridge or expansion module. Now I believe this one has an extra menu. There we go, just for ColecoVision. And you can actually select, you can go into the carts and you can select, you know, a cart of your choosing. Let's try Congo Bongo. Very cool. Now I wonder if I can actually use my ColecoVision controller in this setup over here. Excuse me while I plug this in. Oh, look at that. But it looks like it's working pretty well. Can't say much for my playing, but very cool. Alright, let's try one more. Let's see if we can get one more in here. We want to go back to the... How do I get back to this? There we go. We want to load a target. What do we got? Anything left? Ladybug. We'll do some Ladybug. Now, I think, actually, before we do that, let me do the Amiga. I think I was having problems with the Amiga earlier. Something about syncing to my monitor. Now, whether it's a problem with my setup or the core, I have no idea. Yeah, I see it's having problems syncing. It's probably a problem with my setup, I'm sure. Yeah, it brings you right back to the actual main menu here. What else we got? I think Ladybug was the last one I wanted to try out. Ladybug. Here we go. And let's move that over. Ladybug. Yeah, looks like it's working too. I'm just trying to... I got my head rotated here. You can't see. I'm trying to figure out how to control this sideways. It's kind of a pain. But anyway, so you guys get the gist. It works pretty well. And so my plan is, of course, to take my pole position and port it to this. Mainly because of the audio. I mean, it's got a nice audio setup here. It's got a nice SD card setup. I really love that. I can take all my ROMs and throw them on the SD card and just deal with it that way, and not have to worry about trying to find a monstrous FPGA to load everything up in board. I mean, of course, the dev kit that I have does handle it all, but you know, the plan is to mass produce this thing to some extent, and so I can't be spending crazy amount of cash for a monstrous FPGA, and so I really need to work on you know, getting it to work with a much smaller target, much smaller FPGA. So that's the plan. There you have it, folks. That was a quick overview of FPGA Arcade's replay board. Many thanks to Mike J for setting me up with the replay board, and to Wolfgang for walking me through the steps to kind of get it going. Like I said, I want to get pole position kind of mapped onto this device so I can start playing with the audio and some of the other cool features that this board provides, like the SD card and all that good stuff. And so subscribe if you want to stay on top of that stuff, and we'll keep you guys all in the loop. Other than that, I guess that's it. We'll catch you on the next one, and see you later.